Okay, so the second part of Chapter 3, Section 3 is actually graphing systems of inequalities. So what we did in the first part is we took the graph and wrote the inequalities. Now we're going to take the inequalities, and we're going to draw and create the graph. Okay, so things to remember. First of all, and you know this, but let's just review. Okay, linear means y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope, rise over run, and b is your y-intercept. That's the first point where you're going to start, and then you go from there with your slope. Then let's talk about when you have lines that are like x is greater than or x is less than, that look like this. Just remember, a line like this is a vertical line, okay, that is dotted because it's greater than, okay, where the shading is to the right or above. If you think about the x-axis, the large numbers are on the right, so if it's greater than, it's going to be on the right, okay? And then when you have something in this form where there's no slope or an x value, this is just a horizontal line, and this one would be shaded above. That's just a reminder. We talked about that, but let's just remind ourselves. Okay, now let's also remind ourselves how to graph an absolute value. Remember, A, okay, we're not going to talk about when A is on the inside, but we'll talk about when A is on the outside. When A is on the outside of an absolute value, we remember this is the slope or the change of the steepness of the line, or the V, okay, which if you remember, absolute value is in the shape of a V, and the vertex is HK. The vertex is the minimum or the maximum point. If you look here, you can see that we have a minimum or a maximum point on our graph, okay? Those are the vertices, I guess, since there's two. So where it changes direction. And remember, just a reminder, H is always opposite, okay? When you have H, it's always opposite. So if it's a negative H, that means the vertex is actually positive H, okay, opposite, okay? And we'll do some examples. This is just like the last video that I gave you, just a reminder. Solid line means you have equal to, dotted lines mean there's no equal to, above the line is greater than or equal to, below the line is less than or less than or equal to. Okay, so let's graph the system of inequalities. When I have a system just means more than one. Okay, so in this case I have two inequalities. I have y is greater than 2 and x is greater than 2. So y is greater than 2, if you remember back to the first page of the notes, y is greater than 2 is a horizontal line at 2. And since it's not equal to, I have to make a dotted line. So I'm going to make a dotted line that's horizontal at 2. Okay? And then, this one doesn't have an arrow on the end. Here we go. X is greater than 2 is going to be a vertical line where x equals 2. So 1, 2, a vertical line where x equals 2, which is right here. Now, the only thing, if we were just graphing the equations, we would be done. However, we're graphing the inequalities. That means we have to shade. But the answer is where the shading overlaps. So we don't want to shade everything. We just want to shade where the two would overlap. Well, if you think about it, y is greater than 2 is going to be above the line. So if this is my y is greater than 2 line, greater than is going to be up here. Okay? X is greater than 2. If this is my x is greater than 2 line, this vertical line, I would shade this way. Well, where would I shade up and to the right? Yes, right here in this area, right over here. So I would go ahead and this would be the solution to the system of inequalities. It's where the two shadings would overlap if I were to shade both of those inequalities. Where would they both be shaded? It would be right here. Okay, let's try another one. All right, so I have y is less than x minus 1, and I have y is less than or equal to negative x plus 6. So let's look at the first line. Y is less than x minus 1. And I wrote these things down so that you could know what I'm thinking about as I go to graph these. Okay, so I look at less than. Is the shading going to be above or below? It's going to be below since it's less than. Solid or dotted, it's going to be dotted since there's no equal to. What is the slope? 1. What is the y-intercept? 0, negative 1. Because if you look, m is 1, b is negative 1. So when I go to graph, I'm going to start at my y-intercept, 0, negative 1, which is right here. And I'm going to go up 1 over 1 here. So I'm going to find a dotted line. And it looks like this. Okay, now, if I were to shade this, I would be shading below the line, which would be down here. It would be this way. However, I don't want to shade that yet until I know where it's overlapping with the other inequality. So if I were to shade that, I would shade all that on the bottom of that line, but I don't want to do that yet. Let's look at line 2 first. Line 2, oh, that was actually that was line 1. So line 2 is y is less than or equal to negative x plus 6. This one's less than or equal to, so we're also shading below the line. It's a solid line since we have an equals to symbol. The slope is negative 1. The y-intercept is 0, 6. So I'm going to start at 0, 6. Always start at your y-intercept. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to go down 1 over 1 here. And it's going to be a solid line. So when I go to draw it, instead of having a dotted line, I'm going to have a solid line. And it looks like this. Now, the shading for that solid line would be below, which would be this way. Whoops. This way. So where is it below the solid line and below the dotted line? In this little mountain-shaped area down here. So that's the answer to the system of inequalities. It's any point that would land in here. So if I were to ask you, is the point 1, negative 3 a solution to the system of inequalities? Well, 1, negative 3 is right here. Is it in the shaded area? Yes. So we would say, yes, it is. What about the point negative 3, 1? Well, negative 3, 1 is right here. That would be no, because it's not in the shaded area. Let's graph another one. So x plus y is less than 8. Now, line 1 for the system of inequalities is a little tricky because it's not in slope-intercept form. So we have to go ahead and change that or manipulate that inequality so that it's in slope-intercept form. So let's do some algebra. So I have x plus y is less than 8. I'm going to subtract x, so I have y is less than negative x plus 8. And that's line 1. Make sure, just a reminder, this is going to happen on Math Excel. Make sure if you divide or multiply both sides of an inequality by a negative, you flip the sign. So first of all, less than, that means it's going to be below, and it's going to be dotted since there's no equal to. Slope right here is negative 1. Y-intercept is 0, 8. So I'm going to start at 0, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's negative 1, so I'm going down 1 over 1. And it's a dotted line. And there we go. Now, I don't know why that made that red, but it did. Let's look at line 2. X is greater than or equal to 0. Oh, I forgot to say, that would be below the line, so anything on this side. 0, x is greater than or equal to 0, well, that is just the x-axis. Okay, that is just the x-axis, which is this one right, or I'm sorry, the y-axis, which is this one right here. Okay, so this would be a line here, and I would shade greater than, which would be to the right. So it would be anything over here. So far we're in this little area right here. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but we're in this area right here. Okay, now we have to grab, oh, I forgot to answer the questions, but basically it would be above, or to, in this case, to the right. It would be a solid line. My slope is undefined. My y-intercept is all solutions. It's because it's the y-axis, so no big deal there, but it's all possible solutions. And this one, y is greater than or equal to 0. It's going to be above the line. It's going to be a solid line. Slope is 0. Y-intercept is 0, 0. So we're going to start at 0, 0. It's going to be a solid line, and a little off there, but that's okay. And this one's going to be above, so that means it would be up here. So where does it hit? Where does it go to the right of this line, above this line, and below the dotted line? Right inside that little triangle right there. So that is the solution that we would want to shade in, right here. Okay? That is the solution where it overlaps all three inequalities. All the points in there mean that all three of those inequalities are true. All right, let's try final example, and then you can work on some of your Math Excel. So, solve the following system of inequalities by graphing. Well, the first line, we have y is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 4. This would be above the line, solid line, negative 2, and 0, 4. So I have started 0, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to go down 2 over 1 since I have negative 2 slope. And it's a solid line. So, and there. Uh-oh, it won't let me grab that line, but we'll just go ahead and draw that a little bit further. There we go. Okay, and that would be above the line, so that would be over here. And you can draw little arrows on your paper so you remember. Line 2, x is greater than negative 3. That'd be a vertical line at negative 3, 1, 2, 3. So that would be above the line, oops. It would be above the line, a dotted line, and slope is undefined, y-intercept is none, because the vertical line. So we have a dotted line at negative 3. And we're going to be shading this way, since it's greater than. So right now, everything to the right here, the only time it changes is when they intersect here, and this line would take over, which is not going to be until above the graph. So we're over here and up here. Okay, right now we're right in here in this area. So now line 3, y is greater than or equal to the absolute value of x minus 1 minus 3. Now this one's new and different. This one is an absolute value, so we have to know how to graph an absolute value. If you remember, greater than or equal to means I'm above the line or above the V. It's a solid line, and I need to know my HK and my A value. A value is 1, HK is 1, negative 3. Don't forget to think opposite on the inside of the parentheses. So I'm going to start at 1, negative 3. So I have 1, 2, 3. 1, negative 3. I'm going to go up 1 over 1 on both sides to make my V. And I have a solid line, and I'm going to shade above. So when I create this, there's one line, here's the other one. It's pretty close. Okay, and we would shade above that. So now you really have to think to yourself, okay, where do these three intersect? Well, not in here, because that would mean this line is not included. And it can't be over here, or wait, can it? Yeah, because this would be shaded above. So it's going to be in this area right here, all the way over to that x equals negative 3. So let's go ahead and shade that. Okay, and if you have to shade all three of them and then see where they all three overlap, that's fine. But this is the area that would be the answer. All right, go ahead and try your Math Excel.